Hello class 8 student. Today I am going to continue the video on chapter 8 of history. In the last discussion we discussed about the recommendation of Lord Macaulay, and also we discussed about the Wood Dispatch, which has brought some changes over the education system in India. So Wood Dispatch, as I have already mentioned in the previous discussion, that Wood Dispatch is called a Magna Carta of English education in India. And there were certain places like Bombay, Calcutta and Madras where the cities in these cities universities were established after Wood Dispatch. We have also discussed about Lord Macaulay's recommendation that English medium should be the English should be the medium of instruction in the school, and India should be taught the other subjects apart from religious like science, Western literature and so on. And also Lord Macaulay had poor opinion of traditional Indian learning, which he thought was inferior to European learning. According to him, single shelf of a good European library was worth native literature of India and Arabia. So in this regard, Sir Charles Wood also brought some reform movement through his dispatch, which we call as Wood's Dispatch, and he had a hierarchical suggestion on hierarchical system of education, like primary school must adopt vernacular language, high school must adopt Anglo vernacular, that is both English and local language has to be taught, and college level only English medium for education is to be needed. So today let's continue that we know that the British started with the education system to be useful to the needs of the colonial empire. We had a question in the first discussion that why the British introduced education in India. We know that the British came to India to do trade and to earn huge profit from India, and after coming the British started to exploit in a tremendous way to take more money, to take more revenue from the Indian common people. But why the British were doing good to introduce education in India? Because the British, through their perspective, they thought their own benefit. What kind of benefit? They thought that when common people or common subjects are given, they thought that when the education system will be useful to the needs of the colonial empire, and when these common people will be educated, and these common people can be engaged in their administration in their work, and the need that they needed education Indian to be employed in their administration. Why? To help them in dealing with local people. That means if one people is educated, Indian people is educated, this one people will get job, will be given job, and this job, for this job the person who is engaged in the administration will help in dealing the locals. And they had a calculation that one person can control about 1000 people or more than 10,000 people. So in this regard they had a calculation that in this way when common people will be educated and they will get some certain job, they will provide certain job, and with that job they will start a new system of administration. But instead through the education system in India, though the people were getting education, they were educated and they were become a different kind of class, a middle class, educated class, a new thing arises, that is a sense of nationalism have started in and India. And this will be a different concern in a different chapters we will discuss, because this chapter, these topics will be a more longer chapter than this chapter. So in this regard, some of the prominent people who brought out the defects of the administrative system of the British introduced in India, and also when the British started to criticize that traditional system and religious system in India, few people came forward to speak against this British policy and the humiliation done by the British to the Indian people. And these people were like Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Rabindranath Tagore. Raja Ram Mohan Roy is regarded as forerunner of modern India. Why? Forerunner, that means he was the first person who bring out the subjects for making the Indian people modern through the rites and rituals, not through the rites and ritual, but also the different system of religion. And he says that he criticized certain orthodox religious traditional system in India, and he says that to read the holy books which was written thousands of years back in India, like Atharva Ved, Yajurved, the Rig Veda, which was one of the ancient book, most ancient book in India. He also translated these books into lucid Bengali language and requested the people to read these books. So here we have already discussed that before the coming of the British to India, there were pathshalas and maktabs for elementary education, tolls and madrasas for higher education. So in this way, the new thinking of the Renaissance in the West found no voice in India. That means when the Renaissance has started to find out about Indian education system, so there was no proper education system. Education system in India. And in regards to this, when after new education system was started, there were scientific research. The people were thinking of science and also a little part of thinking. Primary education before was neglected, and there was a decline in the indigenous system of education. The indigenous system of education was declined. People were not going to go for getting education, religious education only. No attention was paid to the education of women. Women were not given education. No attention. Only the males were allowed to go to the pathshalas. Scientific and technical education was not taken care of. So in this way, some of the prominent people like Sir Charles Wood, Macaulay, Lord Macaulay in the British system has brought out in various system to bring up reform in education system in India. So after the British system, some of the Indian big people, great people has come out to bring out. So the first Indian during the British rule who have brought out about reform in education system was Maharaja Sayaji Rao. He was the famous ruler of Gaikwad branch of the Marathas in those times. So he used to rule over Maharaja Sayaji Rao, rule over this Gaikwad branch of Maharashtra for about 60 years. And during this 60 years of his reign, he introduced many reforms in education, healthcare, and administration. His contribution on education, healthcare and administrations are worth mentioning till now. He established compulsory primary education in Baroda. Compulsory. Education system in Baroda. Where? In Baroda. You see, today it is also mentioned in the Constitution of India as Right to Education Act. Right to Education Act. It was amended in 2009 that each and every child between the age of 6 to 14 years are entitled to free and compulsory education. No one can refrain from that, refrain any child for getting education. So under this RT Act, the British government has opened several schools, government operated school, and these children are getting education of free of cost. So he established, as this is done, it is because under the effort of Maharaja Sayaji Rao. It is after the effort of Maharaja Sayaji Rao. Maharaja Sayaji Rao has taught the Indians to do certain things. He established compulsory primary education in Baroda. He also established a library system, a university and several industries. At first he laid the foundation of Baroda College of Science in 1880. This college afterwards it was taken in the Maharaja Sayaji Rao University after the independence in 1947. So this was the contribution of Maharaja Sayaji Rao. Another person that will come which brought about the contribution of education system was Sir Syed Ahmed Khan. It was during in and around he established a college called Aligarh College, obviously under the name Aligarh, and this Aligarh University at present, it is this university which was established by Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, and this Aligarh universities grew out of the dream and effort of this Syed Ahmed Khan. You know that Syed Ahmed Khan also felt that the Muslims also need to be educated through Western, educated in terms of Western education. So because the Indian people fail to learn English and Western education, and they were not exposed to Western education. So along with his friend, his name was Hidayatullah Khan, he started the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College at first in Aligarh in 1875, and the aim of this college was to combine Western thinking with Islamic rules, values, like Western thinking and Islamic values. Always remember, when we are practicing certain rules and regulations which are included in our own religions, we are practicing in blind faith because we don't know the relevancy of the practice. And in this regard, if anything comes from the outside, that is like the Western thinking, who criticize the values of different religions and culture, then we are forced to go back to those kinds of books from where these values came. And ultimately, as Raja Ram Mohan Roy has contributed a lot in finding out these values, that what were practiced in the Hinduism and also in Islamism, but Syed, as found out by Syed Ahmed Khan, that all were not practiced thoroughly, all were not practiced correctly, which are mentioned in the traditional books. Like sati system, the system of sati system was not mentioned clearly in any part of the Hindu scriptures, ancient scriptures. And also Parda system, though it is mentioned in Quran Sharif, but it is not said that the girls are not entitled to education in madrasas or maktabs. So in those times, as it is says that in religious books, in Muslim religious books, girls are not allowed to come out, they need to remain in Parda system. So the girls are not allowed to go anywhere, not in schools, not in colleges, not to do jobs or anything. So in this way girls were setting aside both educationally and economically. So in this regard, when again these books were open, these great books were open, it is seen that the people of the later age has interpreted wrongly. And brought out wrong values, brought out the wrong meaning of the scriptures, old scriptures of these holy books. So in this regard, these people, Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, Hyderullah Khan, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Rabindranath Tagore, these people became the pioneers in bringing out bringing out the blind faith and opening the eyes of the Indian people, and started to think in a new way. And also they asked to set the Indian people themselves free from the orthodox thinking, orthodox way of learning and practices. So in this regard, I have completed this chapter, and in the next session I will provide you with the long answers. I hope so that you have got your short answers in the WhatsApp, and I have given the photos in the WhatsApp group. So next day I will provide you with the answers of this lesson, long answers of these lessons. For the time being, thank you.